Okay, see guys, today we'll go for the Spring introduction to the Spring framework. Coming to introduction to Spring framework, guys, generally tell me. So we have the technologies, right? So what are the technologies before the framework we are using? Okay, technologies. What are technologies we are using before the Spring framework here? We are using Core Java. Core Java means we are calling it as a JTSC, right? Java to Standard Edition, like that. Core Java. We are using Core Java. And after the Core Java, maybe some people are using taking the courses for Advanced Java, right? Advanced Java, we are calling it as JEE concept. So we have the Core Java and Advanced Java. These are called technologies. HTML, CSS, JavaScript. These are the technologies, right? Yes or no? These are what? Technologies. Like that, we have the frameworks. We have the second category is the framework. Coming to the framework, we have the Spring is a framework. Tell me guys, Spring is a framework and Hibernate is a framework and React is a framework. React.js is a framework. These are the frameworks generally. So we have the technologies core and advanced and HTML, CSS and JavaScript, and we have the framework Spring, Hibernate and React.js, right? Exactly. See guys, just I want to store I need to store the employee details in the database. I need to store the what details guys here? Employee details in what? Database. See, to store the employee details in the database, guys, in general in JDBC, what are the steps we need to follow? JDBC. I need to just store the employee details in the database. What are the steps we need to follow? Guys, please respond. Anyone, please respond. Okay, just I want to store the employee details in the database in JDBC. What are the steps we need to follow? What are the steps we need to follow means what the step one. So definitely we need to tell me guys, load the driver. Something we have the JDBC drivers are there. Load the driver, right? The step one is to load the driver. And step two is what create the connection. The second step is we are going for the create the connection. After creating the connection, the third step load the driver, create the connection, and the create the statement object. So either statement object, prepare statement object, and callable statement object. We should create the statement object. Yes or no? Just I need to store the employee details in database, guys. I have some requirement. I need to store the employee details in the database in JDBC. Load the driver, create the connection, create the statement object. The fourth one is what? Process the query, right? Process the query means what? Execute the query and get the result, right? Process the query and get the result like this. And the fifth step, we need to follow what, Amma? We need to tell me. We need to what? We need to close the connection, right? We need to close the connection. Tell me, guys. Generally, on average, you're writing how many steps here total? Five steps, right? Yes. Load the driver, create the connection, create the statement object, process the query to get the result, and close the connection, right? Yes or no? How many steps you need to write? Five steps. Tell me, guys, out of five steps, and five out of five steps, is that loading the driver is a business logic? Guys, is that loading the driver is what? Business logic? Definitely no, right? So it's not a business logic. And creating the connection is what? Business logic? Definitely no. Anyone please respond? Can hear me? At least respond in the chat box and you please respond. Yeah, no, sir. Pawan Kumar, good. See, guys, load the driver is not a. See, we have the technologies we are using, Advanced Java, Core Java, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is the technologies. And we have the framework Spring, Spring Boot, Hibernate, and what? React JS. These are the frameworks, right? Good. See, guys, I need to store the employee details in the database. To store the employee details in the database, in JDBC, we need to load the driver, we need to create the connection, we need to create the statement object, we need to process the query and get the result, and we need to close the connection, right? Good. See, out of these five statements, guys, load the driver is the business logic or infrastructure logic. This is basically infrastructure logic, right? Guys, load the driver is what logic? Infrastructure logic. Create the connection also, infrastructure logic. Creating the statement object also, create the statement object, right? This is also what logic, Amma? Yes, please respond. This is also what logic? Infrastructure logic, right? And closing the connection also what logic? Infrastructure logic. That's what, guys, here, if you go for this line, these four steps are what? Infrastructure logic. What about only this query, process the query and what to get the result? This is called business logic. Okay, this is what logic, ma? Business logic, right? Exactly. Yes, if you build the application using the JDBC, and we should write the developer should write what logic? Infrastructure logic, and developer should write the business logic also. Do you agree or not? A developer is responsible to build everything. You need to write the infrastructure logic and you need to write the business logic also, right? Everything we need to build from the scratch. Yes or no? The developer should write what? The developer should write the developer should tell me guys, write the infrastructure logic and you should write what logic? Business logic also, right? That is like we have the technologies. Technologies means developer he has to build everything guys from the scratch. That is like the developer should write the business infrastructure logic as well as what business logic also, right? Exactly. In the same code, if we write the I need to store the employee data in the database. If you're using the like Springboard, you're using what Springboard, right? If you're using the Spring framework, tell me guys what the framework will do. Guys, what the framework will do? Framework will focus on what logic? Infrastructure logic. Framework says that I will focus on the infrastructure logic. So you no need to developer no need to write what logic here? Infrastructure logic. So developer no need to write the infrastructure logic, and developer just focus on what logic is here? Business logic. Guys, are you clear now? That's what you can say. Like the framework is what? Semi-implemented component, and the framework will focus on what logic? Tell me. Guys, framework will focus on what logic? The
Business
framework will focus on the infrastructure logic. So the developer will focus on developer
business
will focus on what? Business logic, right? But what about technologies? Technologies like from the scratch we need to build, right? From the starting to ending, infrastructure logic, business logic, everything we should take care, no? That is called framework, guys. So we are using the Spring framework, right? Exactly. A framework is a semi-implemented component or semi-developer software, and framework will focus on what logic? The framework will focus on what logic? Infrastructure logic. So the developer will focus on what logic? Business logic, right? This is very important thing. Guys, are you clear now? Good. See, guys, I'll tell you one more example, like the real life example. So previously, if I want to start a software company, what I should do? Tell me. If I want to start a software company, we need to search for the location, and we need to set up the Tell me, you want to start the software company. What we should do? To start the software company, definitely we search for the building, and after searching for the building, and you need to go for the furniture. We need to bring the furniture. We need to check the interior. Yes or no? We need to set up the cabins, and we need to set up the network, and we need to set up everything, right? That is called technology, guys. Technology means what? Everything we should build from the scratch. Yes or no? What about these days, guys? These days, are you looking for the, building? Then you are set up and you set up the environment and you set up the network and the chairs. This all we are doing. If you want to start the software company, Ashok, you please tell me. Guys, can you hear me? Raghu, anyone? See, guys, for the first point, we are talking about a technology and framework. Technology means infrastructure logic and business logic. We should write. What about a framework? Framework will focus on the infrastructure logic so that we can focus on only what logic, business logic, right? That's what, guys. If you use the framework, the application development becomes very faster, right? So the very faster. If you're using the framework, what the becomes what faster and simpler, right? And faster and simple, simpler. That's it, guys. Guys, are you clear now? That's the point. Hey, see, guys, if you want to start a software company, what we should do? So, 10 years back, if you want to start a software company, we need to rent the building, and we need to set up the all the chairs, and we need to bring the systems, set up the chairs, and we need to bring the systems. Need to what? Bring the systems, and we need to set up the network, and we need to set up everything, right? Yes, yes, or no? We need to set up what? Set up the network, right? Good. Everything we should set up, guys. What about now here? Now, if you want to start the software company, what we should do? Guys, now you want to do the software company. Just I can go to the Q Hub building or any nearby, the building Skyview Towers and the Q Hub building, some building. I can rent they will provide some setup right directly. Yes, I can rent the 10 chairs, cabins for the software company, right? Guys, yes or no? We need to bring in everything or, yeah, that's it. So everything is set up is ready. Just you can go and start the company, right? So network is ready, systems are ready, chairs are ready, everything is ready. Just you can, go and use what all the environment, right? That's very clear. That is called framework. Framework means what? Setup is ready, ready made, everything is ready. Just to go and what? Use the network, use the work, right? Like that, guys. Even PGs also. Yeah, yes, sir. Good. That's it, guys. Even see, guys, that time, if you want, prepare if you are interested to eat the, noodles, what we should do? The eating process, if you want interested to eat the noodles, we need to prepare the noodles, then we need to prepare the cooking, and it will take the lot of time, right? Almost all, if you want to build the, noodle setup, it will take the 2 hours, 3 hours time, right? 2 hours time for the Maggie setup. But now, if you're interested to eat the noodles, means what happened? You'll go to the shop, just you can bring the Maggie noodles. It's a matter of how many minutes? 2 minutes, right? Directly go to the shop and take the Maggie noodles and you can prepare it. No? It's matter of 2 minutes. It means what? The point is like base is ready, right? Infrastructure is ready. Once the infrastructure is ready, then you can focus on what? Directly cooking and you can eat it, right? Yeah, that is called framework, guys. The framework will focus on the infrastructure logic, so the developer will focus on what logic, business logic, right? Exactly. Yeah, you read this point here. Framework is what semi-implemented or semi-developed software. The framework is what ready-made structure that provide the basic setup and infrastructure. So the developer focus on only what logic is here, business logic, instead of creating everything from zero. So plug and play offices. Infrastructure is ready. Just you can bring your team. Building a construction framework. See, guys, these days building they are constructed from the scratch. Definitely no, right? Somewhere they have some bricks type, big, big bricks, and they are bringing that bricks, they are connecting, right? Yes, yes, sir. No, even metro, what they are doing? Metro, they are doing the pillar by pillar, or they are bringing the bricks directly. Like that, guys. Building construction, even in high tech city, some buildings are there is not using like pillars also. They are using like iron poles, right? Like that. Infrastructure, everything is ready, guys. Then you can focus on what? Business logic. Yes, are you clear now? Good. That is a very, very important point we are talking. The framework will focus on the infrastructure logic, so the developer will focus on what logic, business logic, right? Everything is ready made. Yeah, that is called for the first point. We got the clarity. And the second point, we should get the clarity, guys. Assume that I'm building the e-commerce application like Amazon. So we are building the application like Amazon.com. So e-commerce application like Amazon.com. See, guys, if you're building the application like Amazon.com, what are the modules generally we are seeing? We are seeing user module. We can see that user service, and we are seeing product service module. What the services we can see? User service. Next one is what? Product service module you are seeing. Next one is what, guys? Here? Inventory service we are seeing. Inventory service. Like that we are have the some services, right, in Amazon. What services you please tell me? Platform service is there. Fine. User service, product service, inventory service, and we have the payment service is there, right? Payment service. And we have the notification service, right? Yeah, notification services. And we have the logger services, right? They're going for some logger services. They have some analytics services, right? Analytics. Like that, guys. We have one service, multiple services they're providing, right? So, and we have the order maintenance, right? Order maintenance. We have the shipment service, right? Yeah, we have the shipment service like that. See, guys, we are building e-commerce application like Amazon.com. We have the user service, product service, inventory service, payment service, and what notification service, and logger service, and what analytics and order service. and we have the shipment service. These are the services, right? Exactly. See, guys, generally, if you take the core Java application, in core Java, who create the object for the Java classes? Like core Java, who create the object? Yeah, who create the object means what? In core Java, we are creating, developers are creating the object, right? Yeah, definitely. Who create the object means what? Developer creates the object. See, guys, I'm creating object like, payment service object. Assume that payment service PS equal to what? New payment service. I am creating the, the payment service object like this. And tell me, like that, you are creating some notification service object, and we are creating object manually, right? Who is controlling these all objects? We are controlling all objects, right? Payment service object is there. Next one is what? Notification service object is there. Notification service. See, guys, like that, who is controlling the objects here? Notification service object is there. Payment service object is there. Orders O equal to what? New orders. We are creating objects, right? Yeah. See, guys, here we are creating object. That's okay, fine. But we have the few classes means we can handle, right? Assume that you are building the e-commerce application like Amazon. In Amazon, like, Amazon.com, we have the 500 classes. How many classes, ma? 500 classes. Assume that we have the 1000 classes. Then how many objects we should create? Guys, how many objects we should create? Definitely we should create the 1000 objects, right? Definitely we should have how many classes? Like 1000 classes are there. We should create how many objects? 1000 objects, right? See, developer is creating the 1000 objects, and like, developer creating what? Creating the 1000 objects, and injecting the 1000 objects. Like managing the 1000 objects is easy task or difficult task? Manage the 1000 objects. Tell me, guys, creating the 1000 objects and what? Manage the 1000 objects is what? Definitely very difficult task, right? Very difficult task, easy task. Guys, please respond. Is the difficult task not sure that user can create the many as limit? Yeah, definitely right. He cannot manage that many objects, right? Generally, I'm talking. Yeah, that's what we have the framework, and in the framework, who will handle it, who will create the objects, and who is manage the object? Is a developer is managing the object in the framework. Yeah, framework. Are you creating the object, or framework will manage the create the objects? That's very important thing. If you're building the e-commerce application, definitely we have these all the services. Definitely the core job means developer create the object. Developer is having this many objects. And Amazon application means what? 1000 classes are there. Then how many objects you need to create? 1000 objects, right? Creating the 1000 objects and what? Managing the 1000 objects are very difficult process, right? Yes or no? Easy process, difficult process. Definitely difficult process. That's what, guys, this responsibility will take away the framework. In framework, the framework will create the object. Guys, what in framework? In framework, the framework will create the object. Okay, very important, guys. The framework will create the object. The framework will create the object, and the framework will manage the object. Framework what will manage the framework will what you can say will manage the objects. Manage the object, right? That's what developer life will become easy, right? See, guys, the first case what I told, developers should focus, sorry, in the technologies, we should write the infrastructure logic, business logic. Definitely developer life is what? Very difficult. Whatever framework says that, hey, developer, you focus on your business logic, I'll focus on the infrastructure logic. Then developer life becomes easy, right? In the same way, if you're building the e-commerce application, we have the 1000 classes means 1000 objects. Definitely developer what? Creating the 1000 objects, managing the 1000 objects, very difficult, right? Then who will manage? The Spring Framework will manage. And Spring Framework will create the object, and Spring Framework will what? Manage the object, right? Exactly. Guys, are you clear now? Guys, are you clear? That is very, very, very important point. So who is creating the object and who is managing the object? The framework will create the object and what? The framework will manage the object, right? Exactly. Sir, the framework means what? Who is a see that process we are calling it as a IOC, guys. What the full form of IOC, like inversion of control. What the meaning of inversion of control means? See, we are controlling means what? That core Java we are controlling. But inversion means what? We are controlling a reverse. Guys, Spring use the IOC principle. The Spring uses what principle, guys? Tell me. Spring uses the IOC principle. What the meaning of IOC principle? Hey, Core Java, who are controlling here? Guys, anyone, at least one guy, if are talking, that is good actually. In the core Java, who is creating objects? Definitely developer. Yeah, definitely developer is creating object and developer is managing object, right? But as framework, developer is handling a reverse. Developer is creating object or reverse. Reverse, right? Reverse in the sense what? Who will take care? Framework will take care, right? That is called IOC principle. IOC principle saying that inversion of control. Because IOC full form is what? Inversion of control. Inversion of control means what? Instead of developer maintain the application, instead of what? Instead of developer create the maintain the objects. Instead of what? Developer create the objects. The framework will create the object. Okay. The framework will create the. Tell me guys, will create the objects, right? Exactly. Okay, that is called IOC principle says. It's a very important entry question, guys. What is IOC? IOC means what? Inversion of control. Inversion of control means we are controlling a reverser. Guys, inversion of control means what? We are controlling a reverser. Definitely, which is like reverse, right? Yeah, reverse means who is controlling. The framework is controlling. Then developer life easy, right? Hey, today we got the 2 points. So the framework will focus on the infrastructure logic. Then developer is safe. The framework will create the object. Who will create the object? Ma? Framework will create the object. Framework will create the object means what? Developer life easy, right? Yeah, that is called Spring IOC principle. See guys, Spring IOC principle. IOC is a principle saying that instead of developer create the object, who will create the object? Framework will create the object, right? Framework will create the object. In the framework, we have the concept of Spring IOC container. See guys, in the JVM, in core Java, who create the object? Tell me. In core Java, who create the objects? In core Java, objects are created by who? Yeah, IOC is the principle. IOC is saying that instead of developer controlling the application, the framework will handle the object creations and object management. In core Java, yeah, that's IOC principle. But really, who is creating the object means in core Java, objects are created by developer and the managed by what? Core Java means we are using the JVM, right? Java Virtual Machine. JVM create the object. But if you take the Spring framework, what is a Spring framework? Who create the object means Spring IOC container. What am I? Spring IOC container. The Spring IOC container is responsible to create the objects. Yes, who is create the object? Spring IOC container is responsible for creating what? Object, right? Exactly. Here we have the two questions. Point one, what is IOC? Tell me guys, what is IOC? IOC is a
Inversion of control.
inversion of control, which is a principle saying that instead of developer creating the object, the framework will control the object creations and object management, right? That is the IOC. What is IOC container? What is Spring IOC container? Spring IOC container means what? Spring IOC container is responsible for what? Creating object, right? Yes, Spring IOC container responsibility is what? Creating the objects. That is called IOC. IOC is a process. IOC container will create the. Tell me guys, IOC container what? Will create the object, right? Yeah, that is very important, guys. It is very clear now. Good. That is called no very important 2 points we discussed. The framework will focus on what logic? The framework will focus on infrastructure logic.
Infrastructure.
So the developer will focus on what logic?
Business logic.
Business logic. So yeah, the second point is what? If you are having the core Java, who creating the object here? In core Java, definitely developers are creating object, right? But small 100 objects, 200 objects is not a problem. If we take the Amazon, Flipkart, we have the thousands of objects, right? Developer is creating the thousands of objects, managing the objects is possible, not possible. Not possible, right? That's what who create the objects here? Spring IOC container. Spring IOC container responsible to create the objects, and that reverse process, that is the process we are calling it as a IOC principle. Inversion of control. Inversion of control means we are controlling, a framework is controlling. Framework is controlling. Okay, that is the inversion of control. Spring IOC means what? IOC container is responsible. Hmm. Tell me guys, responsible to create the objects, right? Responsible to create the object. IOC means what? Inversion of control. Instead of developer creating the object, the framework will control the object creation process. Got it, right? The framework will create the objects. See guys, the Spring is given by the person. Just you can have the spring.io website, which is given by VMware guys. The vendor for the Spring is like, VMware. So Java is given by which company? Java. Java is given by which company? Java initially from like, Sun Microsystems. Yeah, now it is acquired by the Oracle. Now the Java product from which company? Oracle Corporation, right? Yes, yes or no? Java from the Sun Microsystem. Now it is from the Oracle. Like that, Spring Framework is given by the VM. So here we have the VMware, right? This is called website for that Spring Framework. VM, that is called website we need to check. So I'll open this website to check the data, guys. Fine. Spring.io is a website. Website like, here we have the VMware. Good. Who is the author of the Spring, guys? Spring, who is author? The Spring author is like, Rod Johnson. He is the creator of like, Spring framework. Core Java is given by which person? What the person name? Yeah, this is like author, guys. Author is the Rod Johnson. Author is a Rod Johnson. Your trainer is like my name is Ratan. And website is spring.io, which is like open source, guys. What's the meaning of open source? Yeah, what's the meaning of open source?
Everyone can use
Everyone he can use it, right? Freely we can use it as open source. The present version of Spring is a 7.0 recently released, guys. We have the 7.0. Yeah, 7.0, right? For the Spring data here. Is it clear now? The 7.0. This is the company for the Spring, no? Good. Okay, see, this is like, we have the infrastructure logic. What is the framework? Infrastructure logic, business logic, and who create the object. Hey, what are the types of frameworks? Do you have any idea of the types of frameworks? Types of, frameworks. What are the types of frameworks means like in the first one is we have the UI frameworks, right? What the UI frameworks we have? Yes, please respond. What the UI framework? Can I say React JS?
Angular.
React is there, Angular is there, like that, UI frameworks. Like that, we have the web frameworks. In olden days, we have one, like, see, UI framework will focus on what logic? Front-end logic, right? Yeah, UI framework will focus on what logic? UI logic. Web framework will focus on what logic? Tell me here. Business logic, right? Yeah, we'll focus on the business logic. So we have the how about the structs, right? Structs is the web framework, which can focus on only business layer, business logic. STRU say structs framework. And we have the third framework is like ORM framework. Tell me guys, what is a ORM means like object relational mapping, tell me guys, object relational mapping, ORM framework. Example is what? Tell me guys, Hibernate. Hibernate is a ORM framework. It means it can talk about what only database connection and database CRUD operation, right? Yes, yes or no? Database connection with CRUD operation. What operation, guys? Yeah, CRUD operation, right? Create, read, update, delete, CRUD operation like this. Hibernate. So there are three types of frameworks. UI frameworks we have, web framework we have, ORM framework we have, right? Different types of frameworks are there. What about your Spring framework? Is that Spring is what type of framework? Yeah, Spring is what type of framework? Is that Spring is a web framework, or it is a ORM framework? Guys, what is a Spring? Spring is what framework? Spring is what type of framework?
Combination of two.
Combination. What Spring is what type of framework? So instead of saying like combination of two, can I say like Spring is a not combination of two? Okay, it's a web framework and it is a ORM framework also, right? Yeah. Generally, Spring we can call it as a modular framework. They introduce Spring in the modular framework because the Spring is come up with what different modules, right? Do you have the different modules in the Spring like Spring MVC and the Spring MVC, Spring REST API, Spring Security, Spring OOP, Spring Expression Language, Spell is there. Yes or no? Spring is what framework here? Modular framework. Spring is a modular framework. Each module can do specific action, right? Yeah, Spring is what framework? Yeah, Spring JDBC. Spring is a modular framework. Each module can do a specific action, specific purpose, right? Yeah, specific purpose. Yes or no? Spring is a modular framework, yes. So we have the Spring Core module. Spring Core module targeting what? IOC container, dependency injection, auto wiring. The Spring Core module is there. Like that, we have the Spring Security module. The Spring Security module talking about what? JW token, security authentications like that. We have the Spring REST module to build the REST APIs. And we have the Spring MVC module to talk about the MVC. And we have the Spring JDBC module to take care about what? JDBC connection and sorry database connection, and we have the Spring test module going for the to write the unit test cases using JUnit and what Marketer, right? Good. Like that, guys, we have the Spring expression language EL module, and we have the Spring AOP module go for the aspect oriented program like that, right? Exactly. The Spring is what framework, guys? Here it's a modular framework. Guys, Spring is what modular framework. Each module can do what specific action, right? As you can see this word here, Spring is a modular framework. Each module in Spring perform the specific operation. Spring core module can go for the core concepts like IOC, dependency injection, auto wiring. Yes or no? Spring REST module is what building the REST APIs. Spring MVC module, MVC application. Spring Data JPA module, connect the database. Spring transaction module, Spring security module, and Spring batch module, Spring test module, cloud module, AOP module, EL module, different modules, right? That's what, guys. Spring is a modular framework. Yeah, all rounder. Nice, nice word, Ashok. Yeah, sometimes you respond like that. It will be good. Yeah, Spring is a modular framework. Okay, are you clear now? Spring is a modular framework which can do different activity. Each module can have the specific purpose. Okay, are you clear now? Good. See, guys, real time when you develop the application, two options we have, different layers. The real time, sometimes what happened, business logic purpose, we are using business logic purpose. I'm using the structs framework. What framework, structs, business logic purpose. And security purpose, I will use Spring security module. Spring what module, security module. And ORM, object relational mapping. Database purpose, I'm using database purpose. Database purpose, I'm using what module? Tell me, guys. Yeah? Database purpose, I'm using Hibernate. It means what option one with you, okay, guys. This is last point for the today class. Try to understand the point. Option one in the project, the specific layer we can implement using the Spring, and different layers can be implemented using different technologies, right? Yes, different layers you can implement using different technologies, and you can use some of the layers Spring technology, right? Spring module, right? Yes, we can use what module? Spring module. Option one. So business logic can go for the structure. Database you can go for the Hibernate, but security we can use what? Spring security. And testing purpose you can go for what? Spring test module. REST APIs purpose you can go for what? Spring REST module. Like that. It means what? Different modules are using what? Different technologies, right? Option one. Option two, guys. Complete application is built what? Using all Spring modules, right? Business logic, Spring. Complete application will be built using what? Tell me, guys. Complete what? Complete application Build using complete application is built using what? MVC, right? Sorry, Spring, right? Exactly. Then what we understood about this point, tell me. In different layers of the project, we can use the different technologies. One of the layer, you can use the Spring. No, sir, my complete application is building using what? Spring modules, right? Guys, complete application is building what? Using all Spring modules. Otherwise, that's what, guys, modular framework. Specific module, that's what you can say Spring is a lightweight. Specific module, if you want to use it, you can use it. A no, sir, complete application I want to build using Spring means we can build it. Guys, complete application we can build using what? Spring, right? Yeah, that is very, very important word. So business logic, the first one is what? Option one. Security, we can go for the Spring security. Rest, we can go for the Spring rest. Remaining all you can use other technologies, no problem. A no, sir, complete project I will build using the Spring means you can use the complete application build using what? All Spring modules, right? Guys, all what modules? Spring modules. That's what, guys, Spring is a modular framework. Guys, are you clear now? Spring is a modular framework. Yeah, are you clear now? Yeah. Good. Just I'm saying that point here, something. Framework is a semi-implemented component or semi-developed software, right? Good. The framework will focus on what logic? The framework will focus on the infrastructure logic, so the developer will focus on what logic? Business logic, right? Yeah, that is all about the introduction about the Spring, guys. In the Spring, who create the objects? Guys, Spring, who create the objects?
IOC content.
Spring IOC container. Spring IOC container responsible to create the objects, right? Spring IOC container. What is IOC? What's the meaning of IOC?
Inversion of control.
Inversion of control. Inversion of control means are we controlling a reverse?
Reverse.
Reverse, right?
Framework will control.
Framework is control the application. Nice. So here infrastructure logic is here setup logic. In framework, are you writing infrastructure logic or framework will provide?
Framework.
Yeah, framework will provide the what logic?
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure logic. So the developer will focus on
Business logic.
business logic. Yeah, that's it. Who given how many types of frameworks we have? We have the different types of frameworks like UI frameworks are there, ORM frameworks are there, web frameworks are there, different types of frameworks. What about Spring? Spring is what type of framework?
Modular framework.
Yeah, modular framework. Modular framework means Spring is come up with the different modules. Yes or no? Spring is come up with what? Different modules.
Yes.
If you want specific modular, you can use in your project. No, sir, complete application I will build using the Spring means you can build it. Are you clear, right? Complete application you can build using that, Spring framework. Who given the Spring framework? Who is author of Spring framework?
Ratan Sir.
Ratan.
Yeah, what is my name here?
Ratan Sir.
Yeah. Ratan, right. Good. Right, is open source license version of Spring.
Open source.
Open source. The present version is running with 7.0. Which companies maintain the Spring?
VM.
VMware developers. Developed by VMware. Developers like VMware. Are you clear, right? Yeah. Okay, that's all for the day. We'll meet in tomorrow. We'll start the first application. We'll see the practicals.
Okay. Sure.
Any questions you have?